Women Making Moves, where we celebrate the moves that women are making. My name is Amy Pons, founder of Unlock the Magic, Coaching, Healing, and Marketing. I'm joined today with Tamra Simmons, executive producer, Live Always, LA Productions, LLC. Tamra is an internationally acclaimed executive producer, creative developer, talent director, and entrepreneur. Tamra Simmons is currently the director of production and development at Live Always Productions based in Atlanta, Georgia. A particular forte in storytelling, her primary role is overseeing the development and production of compelling, original content in television. Simmons also has mastered the power of pitching and is known for her ability to develop and pitch content in all facets of television. Simmons inhabits entertainment and cultural niches of the industry, prudently creating and approving storyboards, monitoring processes to ensure accuracy in presentation. Emmy nominee Simmons works in on-set production, leading projects from ideation to execution and final delivery. She is experienced in avidly hiring directors, principal cast members, and production staff. Tamra Simmons was the creator and executive producer of the groundbreaking Lifetime documentary series, Surviving R. Kelly. Impressively, the docuseries has reached a viewership of 26.8 million since its debut in 2019, followed by season 2 in 2020. Prior to producing the widespread docuseries, Simmons' commencement to television occurred when she helped franchise the WE TV hit reality series, Growing Up Hip Hop. Tamra has orchestrated casting for several key brands, represented talent through outreach initiatives, and contributed to creative planning using audience data to drive decisions. An ambitious visionary, her work has earned her raving reviews by national media outlets including Deadline, CNN, Washington Post, Variety, and many more. Simmons' creative nuance has garnered nominations for a Critics' Choice Award by MTV, Best Documentary Series by MTV, Program of the Year Inclusion Award, NAACP Most Outstanding Docuseries, Peabody Award, and a host of notable honors. Tamra, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like I said, I have no idea when you read all those things, I'm like, that is not me. That's just not me. And when I go back, I'm like, oh yeah, I did win that award, or oh yeah, I did do that. So,
Isn't it amazing? I don't know why. I feel whenever I go to write a bio, I'm like, oh,
yeah, like what is that? I'm Tamra Simmons. I produce stories, and then that's it.
and how far back do you want to go? I always ask, which chapter do you want to talk about? I'm
I
42.
know.
So like I have a childhood
Yes.
story I talk
I'm
about.
Listen, I'm 44. Well, I will be. This is my 44th year. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be 44.
Yay!
Yeah,
That's
I'm embracing it. I'm actually embracing it. Usually I think I would have probably crumbled, but I'm like, oh no, 4 4. That's a good year. That's equals 8. Like infinity. Like let's go.
oh, see, you already know that's the connection. It's like, oh, cool, infinity.
Yeah. I have
There's
it tattooed on my side. So I'm just catching up to my body.
your body already knows.
It
Your
already
body has already known for
Yeah,
lifetime.
for a lifetime. I'm just catching up. I'm like, oh, that's what that means. Oh, that's why I did that when I was 25. Oh, that's why I got that when I was 30. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so excited to talk to you. It just feels like, of
Like we're
course,
catching up, right?
it does. It does. It feels like I've known you forever
I
and
know.
divinely met you like officially last week.
Yes. Like a week ago. I was like, I've seen her before. Like I know her.
Wow.
So whenever you reached out, I was just like, oh, that's Amy. Like literally, that's how my spirit and my soul was. It was like, that's Amy. I was like, yeah, of course I'll be on her podcast. Like, duh.
Yes. It's nice to see you again. We
Yes,
know each other.
yes.
Coming back together in this one. It's like, oh, cool. She's on my soul team. Let's chat. Let's connect.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly. I love finding my soul sisters. I'm like,
right.
where have you been? I've gone
Right.
through so much. And where have you been? No one else would know, but you would understand.
Yeah. You told me like the very few things that you've been experiencing. I'm like, yep. Yep.
Yeah. So
That's regular.
this is exactly what the sign says behind you. Inhale, exhale. I just
Let's receive. Oh, let's receive
yeah.
each other's gorgeous energy. I don't even know where to start, Tamara. As I said, like, thank you so much. One of the things that I loved when I watched Impact was that you had said the women would reach out to you all hours of the night. They're like, why are you answering the phone? You're like, oh, because that's what I'm going to do here. Like, you were really, really there for the women.
Yeah, I felt after I heard their stories, and some women, I was the first person that they told their story to because they honestly didn't know if anyone else would believe them. So Whenever you give someone, I feel like me, whenever you give me that responsibility, it is a responsibility of me to make sure I reciprocate and be there for you because I'm one person that represents billions of people in this world. And if the one person that you feel like isn't there for you or doesn't trust you or just wants your story and there's really no, human side of it and compassion, I don't think that the impact would have been the way that it was. And I feel like that was my duty at that time. I'm not a producer at that time. I'm not a mother at that time. I'm just a woman listening to another woman. And I had to take all those hats off and titles that we give ourselves, CEO of this and this and that, the bio. I had to take away the bio and realize at the end of the day, this is who I am. I'm a friend. I'm a listening ear. And I'm a person who can possibly help heal another human being. Like it could have been a man, it could have been a woman. I just wanted to make sure, especially being a woman and a woman of color, because in our culture, we're taught to not actually talk about the things that hurt us because we should just deal with it ourselves in private. And I don't believe in that. And for whatever reason, our culture has taught that. And because this woman is the same color as me, I understood why she never talked and she never spoke out. Then you have the victim shaming as well. Well, what did you have on? What were you wearing? And those things. So you have to break down so many layers that these women had. And I just said, well, if they call me at midnight and they're like, hey, I don't want to do this documentary, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, how are you feeling? I could care less. I'll let the network know tomorrow that you don't want to do it. And if you change your mind a month from now, as we're still producing and going, filming and that sort of thing, you can say, hey, I'm stronger this month. But that doesn't matter. So there was tons of women that I talked to on camera and off camera. And I have relationships with mostly all of them still today.
You are the reason these women receive justice after so many years and so many things. And it's not about him. I want to bring it back to the women. My sacred rage would boil when the lawyer would come on and say like, oh, why are these women coming out after so many years? I'm going to make probably not a very big leap here. Every single woman you know in your life has been assaulted in some way, shape, or form through words, touch, insinuations, innuendo. There's been something, every single woman. And then the moment we do say something, it's re-traumatizing at the least.
It is. It's actually, what I felt is that these women didn't even feel like they were worth listening to. You're worth listening to. You're worth hearing. Whether you tell me or you write it down in a diary, and some of these women they didn't even go to therapy. Some of them couldn't afford therapy. Some of them just didn't think a therapist would even believe them. So we have all these people in this world, all these resources. And as a producer, you have to quote unquote tread lightly because you can't cross over into the medical and things like that. So, and the liability of certain things that may come out during therapy. So, of course, the network wasn't able to offer them therapy like one-on-one and pay for that. We had to build resources to be able to assist them to be able to go to this resource, and that resource may be able to help you financially with this part of your healing journey. But that was something that I took upon myself to reach out to therapists myself and say, hey, is there a space where you have financial assistance and or you could provide assistance at no cost or low cost, or what is the cost? Like, I'll pay for the cost. I was like, oh, I guess I'm open to being sued or whatever. I don't even know, but I didn't care. At the time, I was like, that's not what I'm worried about. I'll deal with all that stuff later if it ever comes. But let me move in the moment and let me try and see who can help and what resources I have. Because there's a reason why I have resources. I knew tons of therapists, but they were never my therapists. They never were. Like Amy, I'm talking about, I went down my Instagram and I typed in therapy or therapist, and there were like 7 or 8 that popped up. Some in Texas, some in California, some in New York, some in Tennessee, some in Georgia. And I'm like, I don't talk to any of them. So how do I have these resources or these connections? And I'm like, they were already there for a time such as this, and they weren't for me. Sometimes our connections are not for us, they're for other people. And that's where we bridge the gap in helping each other. It's like, Amy's great. Amy can do X, Y, and Z. I've never seen Amy do X, Y, and Z, but I know she can. But if this person over here needs Amy for X, Y, and Z, I'm going to connect Amy and her so they can figure it out and do X, Y, Z. And then I just go on about my business because I don't have to gatekeep and I don't have to hold hands. And that's what we're here for. We're women, and it's like, reach out to me, ask me. If I don't know an answer, I promise you one thing, I'm a researcher at heart, and it will bother me until I figure it out. So I'll either figure it out or I will find an answer and we'll create an answer together.
You're defining what it means to stand as a firm, divine, feminine goddess. Innately, we have this in our womb space, in our sacral chakra. We trust innately. Oh, you need this? Let me get you this. And it's not about that person being like the number one in their state of X, Y, and Z, to your point. There has to be a vibe and a rapport and all of that things, but it's like, oh, this person does this. It's that beautiful community piece that we're all, I feel, returning back to. And of course, like I said, energy is everything. Everything's energy. All humans have divine feminine, divine masculine. Divine feminine is feeling through to take a soul aligned action in the divine masculine. So anyway, so I think that's so beautiful because you, in so many ways, for so many women, were the very first step in healing just by listening.
And that's when I realized that, like, listening to someone and not responding, like, I'm not a person who didn't listen to people before, but since I did that documentary, I listen differently. Because I listen with my heart. I don't listen with my ears. I'm like, what is this person saying? What do they need? So while they're talking, excuse me, while they're talking, I'm processing everything, but I'm actually trying to also download the solution. Like, what solution can I provide? What service can I provide? So by the end of that conversation, I can provide some type of resource or be that resource for that person. Or if it's like messages that I receive, it's also being open and saying, hey, like, I have this gift and I feel like this is what you need to hear, and this is what you need to do, or this is what you need to say, or this is how you need to be. And I didn't exercise that as much as I probably should have and would have, but I'm still thankful for the impact that it had, regardless of me not exercising it. But now in the space that I'm at now and still being able to have some of the most complicated stories like Casey Anthony coming to me and saying, hey, I want you to tell my story. And I'm like, me? Why me? First of all, I know Oprah offered her $1 million during that time, to speak during her trial, and she turned that down. And I'm like, hey, me and Oprah both are from Nashville. We're both Black women, but we have different bank accounts. So I don't have the million. She's like, no, you're a great storyteller. And I want to tell my story one time. People can listen to it. People can still hate me. She was like, I don't care. I just want to be able to tell my story. And I had to realize that I was being a vessel and a tool again to give someone a voice because we didn't know why she was actually acquitted. Not to go into that story, but I listen and I try not to judge. And I listen and I try to be a resource in whatever way I can be, and in whatever that is for that period of time. And I don't know if it's for a lifetime or if it's just for that moment. Some of these women, they're like, hey, let me know when you're coming to Atlanta. Like, let's do lunch. Hey, I'm coming to LA. Like, I want to see you. Or they wish me Merry Christmas. We wish each other, happy birthday. So it actually built like a sisterhood within that trauma. And sometimes you don't even know that that's actually like being built at the time.
I'm having a lot of downloads. That's why I'm fidgety. May I share?
Of course. Yes, please.
Okay. So I get itchy when I'm getting downloads from your guides. And so when you cleared your throat a minute ago, that was your guide being like, heads up, more of that, please. And then my left shoulder started itching, which is heart chakra, divine feminine, asking more, please. And it's through your heart and your throat specifically. So
Oh my gosh,
that's
they
for
want me
Tamra.
to speak so bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, like how do I do this? It's almost like, how do you share your gift with the world so abruptly? Or do you just give it to them in doses? That's where I'm at right now.
Today's the start. If this is your first podcast, or I don't think it is, but it
Oh,
was
this
like,
is my first podcast like this. I don't
oh,
say yes to podcasts.
okay.
Yeah,
So
I've done maybe like one or two others, but I usually don't go on podcasts. But this is like my year of yes.
You can play it back and hear what you were talking about in that exact moment. That is what your guides are inviting you. That's the breadcrumb, if you will, of how you will do this more.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh
So
gosh, Amy. The behind the scenes of Tamra Simmons, really. Like the me behind the scenes. I never share that. People always want to film me. They're like, your day to day is different. I'm like, I know. I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I have a calendar, but I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, even with the calendar.
guides are pretty frank. They're pretty direct. And they're like, yeah, you've done all that for others. Now it's your turn. That was the vibe. However that unfolds. That was your invitation.
Well, it was hard for me to receive awards for the documentary because that was my first documentary. And I didn't know that you could even get awards for that. I didn't know you can get Emmys. I had to Google what a Peabody Award was. I'm like, Peabody Award? It's like, oh, it's the highest humanitarian award you could ever achieve. I'm like, what? Like, what else am I going to work for then? I got all this stuff. I'm like, no, you can't be all in one project. That's literally how it was. And then they're like, Tamara, you have to walk on the red carpet. I'm like, no, I do not. Like, I'm behind the scenes. I will support you. I'll cheer for you. They're like, no, you have to. Like, this is your project. Like, the network is telling me, this is your baby. This is your project. This is what you have to do. I'm like, okay. But I'm going down the red carpet. I'm like, I want to take the women with me and I want them to shine. I don't want to shine. It's not about me. And so I feel like there's been time I've allowed them to shine and like my guys are like, okay, now it's time to talk about you and everything that you went through behind the scenes no one knows about. No one knew that I had to have security for 2.5, 3 years afterwards. Nobody knew I was almost kidnapped in New York. Nobody knew that I got threats and I had to close my business in Atlanta. Like nobody knows this. No one from one documentary, but it was because I was like, I'm going to do part two. I'm going to follow the trial. But I had to actually like talk to the network and say, hey, like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I want to be supportive. I don't want to let these women down. Following part two, there was more women that wanted to tell their stories. I said, I don't know if I want to do it because it was so taxing the first season. And I was just like, I'm such an empath that I hear stories and I feel for these women. And it was so hard for me to do my quote unquote job, which was executive produce. But now is the time to where people want to know why I'm not going to do Diddy, why I've been asked 8 times. The last year, I was probably asked at least once or twice a month. And I finally said, look, I don't have my son right now because I did survive in R. Kelly, because I wanted him to be safe at that time. So I'm like, my whole life has changed because of a documentary. Diddy is not a person I want to talk about right now. And I had to explain that to them for them to stop calling me. But before I was like, no, I'm busy. And I was like, let me just tell them the truth. I ran for my life in New York. I jumped in a Uber Black and I told the guy to go and he had no idea. He didn't know if I had stolen something and jumped in. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? And I'm like, I had my coworkers chasing the truck with my suitcase because I left so fast that I didn't even grab my suitcase and they're chasing the car to catch the car to throw my suitcase in because I made the network actually fly me home. I said, I need to fly home tonight. Like I'm being followed. I don't feel safe. I need to go home tonight. But nobody knows those type of stories. And I still had to do season 3 of Surviving Our Code because that was the final one. And I was like, this is it. This chapter is closed.
when you were starting to talk about no one knows, I just kept wanting to ask you, how was your heart during parts 1, 2, and 3? And how is your heart now?
So my heart during part 1, I thought it was going to be just a 2-hour documentary. I poured everything into just being a 2-hour documentary. I need to get everything. I need to tell everyone's story. I need to have everyone have the same equal time. I need this. I need that. I poured myself into that after the first year or two of working, oh yeah, we had a bomb threat also in New York of our premiere. So me being the person that I am, I can get blowed up. I don't want these women to get blowed up. Like, things like that. Not realizing like, hey, you have a family at home, you have a daughter, you have a son. But I'm like, oh, for these women or these families, like we need to get them out first. And like, Tamara, you need to go too. Like you need to get out of the building as well. Get back to the hotel, make sure they're okay. Psychologically, they're not. they get even more threats. We know we're staying. Yeah, we know this, we know that. I was up, I think, until like 3 or 4 in the morning with one of the women, and I was exhausted, but I kept going and kept going. It was like that adrenaline just kept going. I hated the pandemic because it took so many people away from us, but the pandemic at the time allowed me to rest. I was able to rest my mind and I was able to rest my body. And I was able to just catch up on just breathing like regular without running. And it allowed me to actually go to therapy. And I realized that for the past 3 years, I've been doing this documentary. I've taken on people's trauma over and over and over again. I prayed for them. I try to be there for them. And some of it was seen as good. Some of it was like, oh, that's just what she's supposed to do. That's what the network's paying her to do. No, the network didn't pay me to be a human being. They paid me actually to be a machine and produce. And so having to combat so many comments on social media, so many people are like, oh, why did you try to take a black man down because you're a black woman? And I'm like, what? I don't understand the world that you live in. So going through all that and then going into Casey Anthony, it was also like, how can you give a platform to this woman and you are for women? So there are people who understood it. There are people that didn't understand it. And I'm like, listen, I tell stories from a journalistic point of view. I never said R. Kelly is a bad person. In that documentary, we never said R. Kelly is guilty. We gave you pictures, facts, information, and allowed the public to form their own opinion. And we saw the outcome of that. It was the same thing with Casey Anthony. But because of that, they're like, people unfollowed you. And then they didn't like it. I'm like, I can't make the world happy. And so I took that on as well as like, what do I need to do to make Tamra happy? What do I need to do for Live Always? Like, what do I stand for? So I'm just now getting to a place to where I'm actually having a voice for myself and actually telling people like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm going to do in a very respectful and professional way. But knowing that these stories that you take on, I don't do it for a check or awards. I do it because it's going to help someone else or help so many others, or it's going to enlighten on certain parts of society and life and things like that. So it has to be a bigger purpose than me. It's never for me. That's why I just won the 2025 Lifetime Presidential Award. And I said, for what? What did I do?
Well, Tamra, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's like I'm in a humanities space of coaching and healing, and if you simplified the work I do down to the very simplified way, and you said this earlier, is we listen with our heart. And everyone's like, everyone listens every day. No, you hear every day. If you do have the gift of hearing, yes, you hear things every day. But do you listen? That's completely different. And so I shine my light. Again, your body already knows. And our brains are meant to keep us safe and in the familiar. So actively listening is such a true art. It's a gift. To your point, all I kept thinking about genuinely through the series when I was watching it was like, is somebody watching Tamra? Is someone watching the crew? Are they okay? Because I can imagine how many did not want this out. So it's interesting to hear now you were really, really going through those really tough things and you didn't feel safe.
I think I was impacted the most because my face was all on it. And even though Dream Hampton was our wonderful director on there, she's a great journalist and she's a great producer and a great director. She was able to actually help navigate so much of that. And I learned so much from her because, like I said, this was the first documentary that I did. So I'm like, I don't know what comes with this, but she did know because she had prior experience to that. And she kind of told me, like, they're going to say this, and the bloggers are going to pick up this, and the media is going to say this, and we're going to twist this around, and we're going to have to do this. So she kind of prepared me on the production side. And I will say that I was not prepared at all on the personal and the more intimate side. And so having to like navigate that and still show up for people was the hardest thing that I had to do because there were times I'm like, I can't even show up for me right now. But somehow I had this innate desire to just keep going, keep going, keep going. I'll be okay. You'll be okay, Tamara. You'll be okay. And like I said, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I honestly don't know if I would have had a break or not. because I went right into Casey Anthony, but it still gave me like a little gap from pitching it, developing it, and everything else to be able to like say, okay, like process what you just went through the last few years and talk with someone about how you feel and get that out. And I was able to do that for like 6 to 7 months. And I actually hosted a podcast, and I was kind of worried about people that went to therapy every week. This was before Zoom was people were Zooming. So I'm like, what about the people that they're okay with doing Zooms, but then they're used to going outside. And this was like, they're in this bubble, they're in their place, they can't leave. And it creates this anxiety, within them, and that they're already trying to navigate when the world is regular. So what can we do? So then we started inviting people on to have like live therapy, but not necessarily talk about just their problems. We had professionals that came on to talk to people to help them navigate through the journey of the pandemic and not being able to have therapy. And the therapists on there offer free sessions and everything. And I'm like, hey, sign me up with you, sign me up with you. Because I know that I needed it, and I wanted to be not only an advocate for it, but a participant in it. I don't like to just talk about something and not do it or have done it. And even when it came to me talking about sexual abuse and that sort of thing, like people are like, oh, did you want to do this because that was your story? I'm like, that's not my story. But there's so many women's stories that it was and that it is. That's why it's important to me. I don't have to necessarily relate to being in that same situation, but I have the compassion and the empathy for the people that weren't able to talk about it. So I just try to create different platforms for women. And sometimes it's like, I think we live in this world where a lot of people are like, oh, why are you doing this? Is it for this or that? Is it because you want to be an influencer? I don't even want to be seen. I can literally just be heard on a podcast and never be seen and be like this anonymous voice. And I would love it. You know why? Because it keeps me safe and protected in my own little world. Because I've been thrown out there and I'm like, it's not very safe out there.
Tamra, just again, I'm just going to keep saying thank you because this is why Women Making Moves was created. I live in a world where I want to hear the unique brilliance and the essence behind the human soul, and these women, especially out in this world, that are creating the existence we all deserve. And it's amplifying the people's stories without attaching to any outcome.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there was going to be an outcome, and
Well, we
was
didn't know. We
mm,
didn't know. We didn't know that feds were going to say, hey, let's open this case or anything like that. And they used a documentary to piece so much together. And I was just like, what?
like, oh,
Yeah. Like I study case studies from Harvard Business Review all the time. And I kind of felt like the court and the trial used our documentary as a case study. And I was just like, how ironic is that? Whether it's Shonda Rhimes and how she got started, or Blacklist and their list of great projects that are coming up and things like that. They're considered case studies. I'm like, wow, like this documentary is like a case study. A lot of things that happen and continue to happen because of it. I realized like the impact of the documentary and the space that we were in at the time when Tarana Burke created the Me Too movement, which I love her. She's so supportive and just love how she impacts women and includes them and all of that. Like she's just a wonderful woman. And she was talking to other women that didn't look like me. And I was like, but we have stories too. And had no idea that Surviving R. Kelly would be that story just from listening. Like I literally met a family, they introduced me to women, and then I listened to their stories. They told me they were ready to share their story. I never asked, like, what do you want to share this? So I'm thankful.
again, thank you. It's an exquisite series. And for those who haven't watched it, please do if you feel called. It's exquisite. So Tamara, as we start to wind down, what are you excited about? What's coming up for you, whether it be with Live Always? What are you pumped about these days?
When it comes to like my career, I'm just excited that now I'm in a place to where I can actually talk about stories that I want to talk about. We get these things called mandates from networks all the time of like what they want to see and what they are looking to buy and that sort of thing, which is like a guide we use. But I follow my spirit with all the projects that I do. And I think that because I follow my spirit. It's a different level of success and a path that most creators in my field don't take. They usually are like, oh, the networks are wanting this, let's make this like black and white. I'm like, no, half the time they don't know what they want. Let's just let the spirit tell me and I'll tell them what they want. So that's where I am. 2025 is all about intentions, setting intentions, and also like executing. I'm really big on making sure that I execute, whether it's in television or I have a marketing company and executing in marketing or anything that I set forth. And like, I want to build the TV and film space in Nashville a little more, and I want to make it more youthful for those up and coming creators that are here in Nashville where I'm currently at. And I want to do that. So it's all about servitude, execution, and intentions. That's what I'm excited about.
The soul, that's the unique magic brilliance of Tamra Simmons. Oh my gosh, gorgeous. We've talked about a little bit of this of a theme throughout the hour, but you made a post about a week ago and it really resonated with me. Surround yourself with powerful, inspiring women who lift you up.
Yes.
Success,
Oh my
success isn't,
gosh.
success isn't just about personal achievement. It's about supporting and celebrating those around you. Who's in your circle that pushes you to be your best? It was uplifting women. Tamra, beautiful post. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so that post says a lot. That's like a sermon in in one little post, like an extra scripture that's not in the Bible. But yeah, I believe that the more you surround yourself by the people that are going to actually lift you out of those dark spaces and dark places, or even if you're just feeling lost or you're feeling down or you just have no ambition whatsoever, I feel like if you surround yourself with those type of women and those people in your life, like there's no way that you can't do anything that your heart has been set to do. There's nothing that you can't achieve. It may take a little bit longer than you expect. It may take a little bit longer than you want, but in the end, all that matters is that you're going to do whatever it is that you're set to do. Whatever your vision is, you're going to actually execute that vision. And guess what? It's not going to be just for you because you are the example for someone else. If we live under that mantra that you're the example for someone else, how many times will we actually give up on ourselves? I don't think we would. If we actually knew that there's someone out here, Amy's looking up to me, Tamara's looking up to me, Sarah's looking up to me, all these women are looking up to me. I can't let them down because a lot of times we can do so much for others than we can do for ourselves. So sometimes we have to trick ourselves. That's what I do. I trick myself. I'm like, you know what? Charlotte is the best developing producer on my team. I can't quit this project because then I would quit Charlotte. So what does that do? It makes me continue to go. And Charlotte's like, oh, we can do it. Just like the sign in behind you. I can and I will. I can and I will. And I stand and I'm standing. I'm refusing to settle. I'm not taking no for an answer. If someone says no to me, I'm like, oh, you mean NOTYET? You mean not yet? Okay, got it. Okay, let me go to the next person. That person says yes. So that person wasn't for me. Those people wasn't for me. That company wasn't for me. But this is for me because I got a yes. And they understood my vision and they understood my path. They understood where I wanted to go. And so those are the people that are going to pull me forward. And those are people going to be lifting me forward.
I love so much that you said that. We can get so bogged down in the human of somebody saying no. And I'm like, yay, what an amazing redirection
Yes.
because that wasn't going to work out for some reason down the line, or it was going to ask me
Tell
to
me no
sacrifice.
now.
Awesome.
I mean, if it's no immediately, just tell me. I'm like, okay,
Let
next.
me let me move
Oh,
on because that
let me,
wasn't for
yeah.
me.
But we get so down and out when we hear no. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that means that was not for you.
Hmm.
Go to the next. And if you don't know what the next is, guess what? You got work to do, girlfriend. You got to figure out what the next is. But it's not for you to give up. And I feel like if you have those women around you that are telling you that and that are like, hey, I'm rooting up Amy, there's nobody else that does a podcast like this. If you give up on your podcast, who's going to talk about unlocking the magic? You're going to leave that up to somebody else that don't even know what magic is or that what magic represents. Like that's what you're going to do? No, we have a calling. Your calling is to make sure that we unlock all the magic that's within us. Not one thing, not two things, but several things. And as we continue to get older, guess what? It doesn't stop. You just keep going. You just go to a higher level. Okay, Amy reached the next level. Okay, now we see Amy on TED Talk talking about Unlock the Magic. And not only is she doing TED Talk, she's doing a TED Talk University. She's now a professor for TED Talk. Like she teaches everyone how to get into their divine feminine and their divine masculine. All because Amy was obedient and she listened and she started here at her podcast and she didn't quit. Whether she had one view, two viewers, 10, 15, she said, hey, that serves a purpose.
Tamra, you just spoke directly to the version inside me that for 20 years stayed in a very small space within corporate and thought I had made it.
Mm-hmm.
You touched her soul. Thank you. Thank you for that medicine.
Yeah, that was just the foundation for her at that time.
Yeah.
It's just totally different. Like even where you're at now, like when I talk to you again, you'll be somewhere else, a whole nother level. I'm like, Amy, you're doing what now? You didn't create an Unlock the Magic University. Do what? Like you created your own and you partner with other people to bring your platform to their platform.
Of course, you divinely called that because I want to create a magic school.
Yeah, it's the Magic University.
Yes.
You actually can get a certificate and a degree in understanding the magic that is within you. Like, who wouldn't want that? Like, when someone tells you, like, you don't know what this is, and you don't know, hey, I went to Amy Pond's, I went to university, I have a certificate. Don't play with me. Don't play with my name.
Don't do it.
Don't play with my name.
Tamra, I can't wait to
see it.
I see your voice. I feel it. I feel your next. What about you're going to be building within Live Always and Beyond? We got this.
I'm so excited.
So
let us know when you're ready to unlock the magic in the opening of Magic University, whatever.
Okay.
Let me know.
I'll let you know.
I'll definitely endorse it and do whatever I need to do.
This has been such a delicious.
I know. I feel like we had lunch, but we didn't eat. But we ate. But we're full, right?
We had a divine lunch. We had a divine spiritual magic lunch, and now we're like beaming and full.
Yeah, the rest of the day.
For those who are listening and being like, storytelling, that seems like something easy. What would you share about storytelling? And for those who feel like, okay, I'm ready to tell my story, but then also those people that are like, ooh, I couldn't possibly. Is the conversation similar to both of them?
Yeah, because some people are ready to tell their story, but they want to remain anonymous. So there's ways, because I work in scripted as well. And so there's ways to be able to tell your story in like a scripted way, but it actually alleviates that type of like pressure from the people that actually want to tell their story, but they don't want people to know it was them. I have a lot of celebrities who come to me who tell me their story, even in Hollywood. And it's not easy telling a story because when you want to actually tell a story, you have to have these three things: the why, the how, and the what. And the why is why now? Why are you telling your story now? And then the how is how are we going to tell your story? And the best way to tell your story to where you only have to tell it one time. And the what is what does this story do for you? For you talking about your story, how does this help you? The what is this going to be able to do for society? What is this going to be able to do for the community? And once you figure out those three things, and it has to like all align with one another, that's when you know you're ready to tell your story. And guess what? Even if you're not, I'm a developer at heart. So I can help you develop until you're ready to tell your story. You might not tell your story to 2037. Hopefully I'm still here to be able to help you tell it. But I'm just because I feel like I'm like 88 years old. I'm living like 75 lives. So but hopefully by that time you'll be ready. But guess what? There was a person that I met in 2025 that helped me start this journey. And even though it's 13, 14 years later, I'm telling my story. It doesn't matter when you tell it. Just tell it.
Just tell it. Tamra, how can we support you and your work?
You can follow me on Instagram at the Tamra Simmons. You can email me at Tamra at livealwaysproductions with an S at the end.com. I receive a lot of submissions. I do respond and let you know, like, hey, we need you to sign an NDA or whatever the case is. We have different protocols, but I do try to respond back to people. But yeah, you can contact me directly. My agents probably would get mad that you do that. But I said, hey, this is how I live my life. Leave me alone.
just adore you. Closing remarks as we wrap up.
For all those that are listening, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And thank you for actually trusting Amy with the guests that she has on and allow me to be able to speak to you for this hour. I ask that, like, anything that you want to do in your life, if you've been trying to decide what path you want to go in life, reach out to me, reach out to Amy, reach out to someone and say, hey, I just need to be able to be guided a little bit. Or hopefully there's something that was said in this podcast that actually allowed you to say, hey, I can do this too. If Tamra can do this, only if you knew that I came from a chicken farm, because I didn't tell you guys that, then you would know that you can do whatever. I was delivering eggs at 6 on a little farm and I was still getting water from the well. I'm telling you, I'm 88 years old. We still had a well in the front of our house and we had running water, but my grandparents still wanted to get that well water. So if you are a person like me who comes from a little small, I think my city now that I'm from maybe has like 20,000 people, maybe 15,000. I'm giving them a little too much. But at the time we had probably like 7. If you can come from that little small town and do great, amazing, big things, not because of like who you are, but because of the person and the people in your life that do lift you up. It takes a team of people. So just know that you can come from anywhere, anything, and there's a reason why you're listening to this podcast today. And just keep going.
Thank you, Tamra.
Thank you.